Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris. I can hardly contain myself about this record. Reviewing music for the love of music, and welcome back to the Metal Tempest. And in this video, I'm going to be covering the new Heilung record entitled Drif. Heilung is a Denmark, Norway, and German musical collective spearheaded by 3 musicians. They tour with more musicians and have sort of a collective aesthetic and atmosphere when it comes to their live sets, but this is a 3-man project. And Heilung, in my opinion, is one of the best folk bands that have come about in potentially decades, one of the greatest of all time, and that can showcase in the fact that Season of Mist, one of the most acclaimed heavy metal and extreme metal labels that have black metal and death metal and grindcore and experimental music, Heilung is most likely, judging by the numbers of their channel, the numbers of their views, the numbers of their exposure, is their token band that is the most well-known and recognizable, and I think that says something to their sheer power. Those of you that have been following the channel for years will know that their 2019 record Futha was one of my only 10 out of 10s that I have ever given any records. I adored that record, and I can't say enough good things about that album. It's fantastic. Go listen to it. Placing Heilung into a box or describing them to someone that is stepping into them thinking that they are just a typical folk band are going to be sorely misled into thinking they are something that they are not. Heilung is a culture, and the lore associated with them have made them create a sound that has touched so many people in a way that they cannot particularly describe. Their musical instruments consist of everything from drums with the skin of animals and human blood being engraved to market, rattles, bells, whistles, and just all these different instruments that are like, they use bones sometimes as drumsticks for their instruments, and the elaborate costumes and set designs of their live sets gives them a level of authenticity that you just don't see in folk music. And it's not only their appearance and their instruments that provide that authenticity, it is also the lore of the band. Heilung basically came together as a collective to pay homage to nature and Celtic pagan religion. Not necessarily just the religious aspect, but it as a concept, it as a spiritual extension. And oftentimes all of their material has some sort of linkage to nature, Celticness, paganism, or some sort of topic matter that they find to be interesting. And on Drif, that's more apparent than it has ever been, with each of these songs taking on a very specific topic of usually Scandinavian or just any sort of pagan sort of historical event or item or concept, and stretching it out to a more methodical and philosophical approach. Now, one of the reasons I think I appreciate Heilung so much, and a lot of people say this in the comment sections of their material, is how it makes them feel connected to nature and it makes them feel the old tradition. The funny part, and I've said this before on this channel, one of the reasons that I love folk music so much and oftentimes will have a connection to it and collect a lot of Celtic memorabilia is the fact that I am both a Scottish and a native descendant. So when it comes to folk music and authentic, unapologetically truthful, and completely just unabashedly paying homage to nature and the concept of it, I can't help but be drawn to it and acclaim it and praise it so heavily because of that connection I have to it. And I think that's what Heilung does on Drif too. You have to have a connection with their material. And this record, in comparison to Futha, is once again a mystifying approach to experimental folk music complete with whistles, ethereal lead vocals, chants, refrains, and the throat singing of Kai, aka Faust. But I will say the one thing that I personally appreciated about this record in comparison to Futha, and I felt it more on this record, I feel like this is Maria's album to shine. Maria's vocals soar over these tracks. They are completely effervescent and beautifully made, beautifully arranged. She really shows off her range from a variety of chants, falsetto, low range. She pretty much explores all of her vocal talents on this record, and I really appreciated that. I also appreciated the fact that Faust didn't just lay entirely into the throat singing of past material from this band. It certainly is here, and the aggressive, almost battle anthem chants that he has imposed on prior material is still present here, but I found that he was doing a little bit more vocal dynamics and experimentation in his range as well. Which moves me on to something really massive about this record, the next step in the evolution of this project. The production of this album is decidedly low-end and quieter, but I didn't personally think this record sounded any more quiet or low-key or underwhelming compared to their prior material. If anything, I think that the constant focus on the low end of bass and resonance has made this album take on more of a thicker approach, a denser approach, and it makes the sort of intimate claustrophobic soundscapes just resonate that much more emotionally and viscerally. And I think that's the feeling that a lot of people get from this material, is a visceral reaction, a connection to the music. And similar to what I did in my review of Futha, which literally was a 10 out of 10 record, I didn't talk that much about the tracks individually. I didn't break down the album individually, because you can't have one track be by itself without the entire project. And I feel just the same about Drif. You have to listen to this album in one setting. It's magical, it is multi-phased, and it's unlike anything that I have heard from even Heilung. And that's the funny part. It's similar to like James Cameron with movies, how his box office gross tops his own box office gross. It's similar to Heilung, where I've never heard anything like Heilung's doing, and then the next thing that Heilung does is even more of an oddity. But musically, let's talk about the differences of this record, comparatively speaking, with Futha. The lore is expanded upon more so on this record compared to their last album. Certainly they did take on the approach of the Scandinavian and the historical and the mythology, but this record pretty much takes a track-by-track definition of their themes, ranging from everything from archaeological finds and scriptures, runes, and I believe that, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere that one of the tracks on this album, I will like put it somewhere here on the screen when I find it, was literally Kai's contributions to it was made after he fasted and was alone meditating in the forest, and he did not inform the band of what he was coming back to do, and then he contributed that to the track, and his snarl is so distinct. It was one thing that I really loved on Futha, and it's something else I like here, but the low end makes it even more menacing and imposing. He has this way of snorting and heavily breathing through his nose in between every word, every chant. Obviously, I can't quote the lyrics because I can't recite the languages that they're being sung in, but it's the thing where he'll just like go into a vocal and he'll just be like, like it's the snarl that he has where he is just like breathing in this energy, breathing in this like chakra. I know this isn't like a Hindu record, but breathing in this sheer energy, and it just comes through. And the balance of Faust's aggressive, commanding presence and Maria's phantom-like presence that is just so gorgeous and so beautifully mixed, the low end helps this record tremendously. And kind of going alongside that, the percussion, the rattles, the whistles, but specifically the percussion, has a certain bass to it that hasn't been present on another Heilung record. Those of you that have enjoyed the thumping, mounting momentum that their percussion has entailed in the past will be pleased to know that the the resonance and the force behind the percussion here is more well-defined, more fleshed out, and a lot more hard-hitting than it was on past material, just solely because of the low end being given more room to breathe. Most of the time, Heilung would be a pretty chaotic sound with a lot going on, but chaotic in kind of the intricate and methodical way, not in the heavy or off-putting way, just solely the fact that they always laid into compositions that were very instrumentally busy and vocally dynamic and showing a lot of range. I'm not saying this track listing is more minimalistic by any stretch, but I did notice that the paying attention to the rattles and to the percussion took more time to build momentum and didn't have to have a compositionally as busy record as Futha was, with more of a focus on atmosphere and texture. Faust almost sometimes takes a back seat to Maria on this album and allows his vocals to be more of an accompaniment. A development across this record is he starts to lay into these whispering, cricket-like vocals that are extremely close to the mic. And obviously, I don't know how this record was recorded, but from a producer standpoint, it sounds as if he was so close to the mic, so intimate with the mic, and then turned up. It's not distorted, it's not compressed, it's not loud, and if anything, it's like this low humming whisper where he comes through in the mix in a very resonating way, but it's so quiet and it's so in your ears, and they play around with panning effects and reverb to make him pop up in one ear, in the other, and then mix, and then go back and forth, and oftentimes these will serve as transitional points that lead into Maria's more ethereal, goddess-like vocals. This record is rich, it is emotionally dynamic, and it evokes a certain emotion that you either feel or you don't. This record isn't everyone's cup of tea. Heilung as a whole isn't everyone's cup of tea, but from a folk standpoint and an experimental standpoint, they perform folk music in such an authentic way that I just hold my breath and am show-stopped every time they release any sort of music. This record, in comparison to Futha, is in my opinion, less dense and less compositionally loud record, and takes more of a somber and surreal, naturistic approach to their style, with track by track being rich and well developed, and the production is just so well put together. This thing is meticulous, and I think it was Maria's time to shine as her vocals just radiate through this mix in such an opulent fashion. And as you can see, when I get going talking about Heilung, I just can't stop, but I think I need to kind of wrap this review up. This new Heilung record is an experience. It is something that you have to listen to in one go, most likely, because I don't think that these tracks hit the same emotionally or resonate the same way standalone as they do when they are put together. These are compositionally rich, well-versed, fascinating, and extremely intriguing tracks with a lot of texture to them, a lot of depth to them, with the band having so much dimension to their sound and so much dynamic diversity that you just don't hear from folk music. This is going to stand out as, in my opinion, the best folk release of 2022, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to hold a candle to that from an authenticity standpoint or anything of the sort. I adore Heilung. And much like their other material, it left me feeling emotionally risen, and it made me feel such a deep connection that I rarely feel with music, and I think that's what a lot of people feel with this project. Overall, though, I have very few complaints about this record. I'm going to be giving this album a 9.5 out of 10, and that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Heilung record, Drif? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I can't wait to discuss this record with you. I hope you like it as much as I do. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.